Hi guys, it's Michelle with Deception Bytes, and I am back again for another video. I told you guys that I would be uploading another video tonight, and even though it's 11:06 p.m., I am going to do that. I had some errands earlier that took me a little bit longer than I expected, but I am back. We had left off with this one right here on November 13th, and I had some questions about this, but I have checked and this is the correct post, so I wanted to be sure before, I declared it to be the proper one, because it seemed to me that I had remembered something else about this post, but I was mistaken. So this is on the 13th of November, which was a Monday, and it says distress calls to others will do your family no good at this stage. We know where you/the family are at all times and can hear you breathing. Now, many people believe that this was in reference to Linda Rothschild, because LDR, Linda Rothschild. However, I am going to link to something, because this is why people thought that this might be Rothschild in reference to her, because 3 days after this was posted, there was a helicopter crash on the Rothschilds' property. I do have a video about that somewhere on my channel. If you just search for it, I'm sure you'll find it. But let me go out to this article. I'm sure all you guys are familiar with this anyway, but just in case. And my computer's being slow again tonight, and I do apologize, and it's probably because I have 115,000 things open. So let me just shut this real fast so that we can speed this up, because I'm sure it's annoying to you, because it sure the heck is to me. All right, now 4Chan user Q warned Linda Rothschild about deadly plane crash 3 days before it happened. Now, I'm not sure that Q was warning Linda Rothschild. I don't know. But anyway, in a mid-air collision between a helicopter and a light aircraft on November 17th, 2017, 4 people have been declared dead. The unfortunate event, and might I say that one person's name has not been released yet. So people keep saying, no, it wasn't a Rothschild, because they've released the names of the people killed. Well, no, they haven't. They've released 3 names. One name is unreleased. So I don't know. The unfortunate event occurred over Waddesdon Manor in Buckinghamshire, England, a former home of the Rothschild family. An unidentified female member of the Rothschild family said the collision missed her by 5 minutes. Before this event, an anonymous user on 4chan's notorious image board poll named Q published a rather cryptic post. Q is a rather curious title for the online countercultural sensation, and many have pondered on the identity of this poster. Although anyone can assign any name for themselves to post on the image board, much discrete information has been reliably produced under this name, true enough, leading many to believe that it is either the alias of a single person or a group working in unison. Read more about Q here. We don't need to read more about Q, because we have been following this all along. On November 13th, 4 days before the incident, this is what was posted. Distress call to others will do your family no good at this stage. We know where you, the family, are at all times. Now, if we read in between the squares, square brackets, which is something typically that Q does, we read LDR, and the D is small. So there's a good possibility that this was directed at Linda Rothschild. This is just a quote by someone, or a tweet by someone that's saying, is this Q message directed at Linda Rothschild? Notice the LDR in brackets. Who died in the crash near the Rothschild estate today? The brackets around the letters LDR in Q's message are begging to be decoded. Was Q prophesying the aerial crash that would occur above the Rothschilds' manor? Was this crash a type of message that someone, presumably Q, was trying to get across to Linda Rothschild, whose initials, sorry, but this is bugging me, Linda Rothschild, whose initials add up to the odd bracketing? Many questions still need to be answered. In yet another turn of events, on November 17th, American actress Roseanne Barr tweeted out, "Who is Q?" Shortly thereafter, both her Twitter account and personal website were shut down without explanation. Roseanne Barr tweeted this out, and now her account is gone, and that is true. That did happen. And her account is back up, but when it came back up, there was no explanation from Roseanne herself. Of course, we know that Roseanne Barr has spoken out about MK Ultra and has been very forthright about that. I'll be honest with you, I never liked Roseanne Barr. I really disliked her, but I'll tell you one thing, I have a lot of respect for her now because she has spoken out about MK Ultra and what is happening in Hollywood, and I've got a great deal of respect for her because she's risking her life in doing so. So, many Twitter users were blaming the social media network as having disabled her account, though it is possible that Barr disabled it independently to garner social attraction. However, the question still remains, who is Q? I don't believe that. I don't believe that Roseanne took her own Twitter account down. I don't. So, that's that. And let's go back to where we were, close these down, speed things up. La la la. Okay, now we're going into brand new territory here for us. This is a long post with a lot of stuff in it. Okay, this is Tuesday, the 14th of November, 2017. Q said, "How do you capture a very dangerous animal?" And my response would be, with a trap? I don't know. Do you attack it from the front? Well, that would be rather silly, wouldn't it? No, I think it would be more advantageous to attack it from behind. Do you walk through the front door? Probably not. Probably the back door. Do you signal ahead of time you will be attacking? Well, that would be pretty foolish, wouldn't it? Of course not. How do you distinguish between good and bad? I'd say by actions. Since we can't see into the heart of man, none of us can, we distinguish between good and bad by people's actions. That's what I would say. Who do you trust to keep secrets? I'd say those with a proven track record. I know in my life, that's who I trust to keep secrets. If I tell somebody something and it gets out, I don't trust them again. So that's what I would say. How do you prevent leaks? By making sure that only those with a proven track record have access to information. And that would make sense to me. I wouldn't give people access to information. I've been in management positions. I never gave people information or access to sensitive information if they couldn't be trusted and they didn't have a track record of being able to be trusted. So I think that probably Donald Trump is far smarter than I, so I think that he would probably think likewise. Who do you trust to complete the mission? I'd say as above, those that have proven themselves faithful, that have a track record. How do you prevent warnings being sent? As above. Obviously we know because Q has told us that there's rogue elements within the government. So I think it's pretty important to know people's track records, and I would say that's how you prevent warnings from being sent, because if you know that people are rogue, then obviously you're not going to give them access to information in which they could warn others. Why is Admiral R so important? Now that's Admiral Michael S. Rogers. I don't know why I have trouble with that word, but I do. Admiral Michael S. Rogers, and that is the head of the NSA. Why was the source code to former NSA collection Ps publicly released? Now, Q is talking about the data collection programs, and I'm saying that it was released because it slowed intelligence operations. That's what I think. Excuse me, it is so dry in here. I hope you don't hear me guzzling my Diet Coke. Why was the source code to former NSA collection programs publicly released? I would say because it slowed the intelligence operations of the CIA. Now, I think I may have, okay, maybe not here. I do have more in association with that. How do you blind the clowns in America? CIA. How do you blind the CIA? You cut off access to information. Okay, that's, they're getting their sight, so to speak, from information, right? If they don't have access to information, they become blind. That's what I would say. If anyone else has any better answers than that, please leave them below. You guys are really great about doing that, and you're very polite in doing it. At least you have been so far, and I appreciate that because everybody's able to benefit from that. So, because I am not saying that I know everything and that I have the answers, I'm saying that these are the answers from what I've researched and how I think this is how I would answer. But it takes all of us. So, what was Snowden's primary mission? I would say, personally, that his primary mission was to decode the NSA files. What was Snowden's real primary mission? I would say to slow intelligence operations, the rogue CIA. Because obviously, the CIA was getting some of the rogue elements within the CIA, which according to Q is just about all of the CIA, were getting their intelligence from NSA files. And so, if you're able, I believe that that's what Snowden's mission was. It was to slow those intelligence operations of the rogue CIA. Was Snowden truly acting on his own? Well, apparently not, or Q would not even be asking that question, right? So right there, he's telling us that Snowden was not acting on his own. Nothing is as it appears. And I said, so it seems, because I would not have thought that. In looking into Snowden, I would not have thought that he was acting, I thought he was acting on his own. I really did, up until like yesterday. So anyway, nothing is as it appears. What show is being put on by AG Sessions since his confirmation? Now, isn't that an interesting question? Really? What show is being put on by AG Sessions since his confirmation? Interesting. Well, let's see. I am going to take you back to a post that Q made on October 31st. And because it's totally tied in here. Okay, so this post was made by Q on, that should say October, not August. I'm telling you right now. I worry about myself sometimes. Okay. Remember, AG Sessions cannot look like and then I just put in brackets there, Attorney General Jeff Sessions. We know who that is. Cannot look like an impartial player that is out to get all former Obama team members, as we need him for other important work. All will come into focus, and for anyone to think POTUS is not in control is kidding themselves. Also, he's 100% insulated with zero risk of impeachment. Fact. So, Q told us to remember that Sessions can't look like he's an impartial player and that he's out to get former Obama team members. And why? Why can't he? Because POTUS needs him for other important work. Interesting. So, what show is being put on by AG Sessions? I would say, based on that the show that he's putting on is that he's an impartial player. I mean, that he is that he's looking like he's not necessarily for Trump, but he is. That's what I would say. I don't know. Call me crazy. But if you have another idea, please put it in the comments. I don't know. That's what I would say. What show is being put on by POTUS since AG Sessions confirmation? Well, I would say that it's the same thing in reverse. Why was AG Sessions confirmation challenged heavily? Well, it was challenged heavily because there were accusations of racism. And I'm going to get into a little bit more and take you out to this just so that we can have an idea of what's going on. The fight over Jeff Sessions' Attorney General nomination explained. Trumpism isn't getting a confirmation hearing in the U.S. Senate, but the confirmation hearing of Jeff Sessions nominated to be Attorney General in the Trump administration is the next best thing. Sessions has been one of Trump's closest policy advisors since before he won the Republican presidential nomination, and many Sessions advisors now staff the presidential transition team or have been named to Trump's White House. The combination of populist immigration hawkery and tough-on-crime rhetoric that defined much of Trump's successful presidential campaign was Sessions' hallmark back when Trump was still a Democrat. Now, Sessions could be responsible for implementing many of the Trump policies that his opponents find most problematic, from stepping up prosecutions and speeding up deportations of unauthorized immigrants to peeling back federal oversight of local police department and state voting laws. That's what makes his nomination a fight that Democrats, going against the grain of Senate norms, which typically encourage senators to treat their colleagues gently, want to pick. Sessions will be the first senator in recorded history to see one of his own colleagues testify against him. Senator Cory Booker will be part of a panel along with Georgia Democrat Republican John Lewis, raising concerns about Sessions' record towards the end of the committee hearing. But for those exact same reasons, Sessions is a nominee. Senate Republicans who are trying to find their way in the age of Trump and for whom Sessions isn't a colleague but a leader in the party they turn out to have in 2017 are enthusiastic about defending. The result is that Sessions' confirmation battle is likely to feature fireworks, but he's unlikely to face a serious threat. Senators usually treat their colleagues well, but at least some Democrats have decided this is an unusual case. Jeff Sessions has many qualifications to lead the Department of Justice. He's been a federal prosecutor and a state attorney general. He's been in the Senate for 20 years and spent much of it on the Senate Judiciary Committee, including a stint as the committee's ranking Republican. He does not appear to face any ethics challenges, and while he's been criticized for leaving some relevant information out of the documents submitted to the Judiciary Committee and the Office of Government Ethics, he has gone through the necessary steps of the confirmation process, including tax returns and ethics disclosures. In short, by the basic qualification standards, he's the upper tier of Trump administration nominees, hardly an obvious target for Senate Democrats to focus their limited energy on as they prepare for 8 confirmation hearings in 3 days. If the Senate were still guided by the norm that it ought to advise and consent the president on nominations, that senators ought not to oppose nominees simply because they disagree politically, Sessions would have sailed through. It hasn't been, of course, for a matter of decades, but it is, or at least until recently was, presumed to be, guided by another norm, that a sitting senator nominated to an executive branch position deserved the courtesy of gentle treatment from his colleagues. After all, they knew him to be an upstanding man. But in 2017, Democrats are setting aside those norms because many of them see President-elect Trump as an existential threat to liberal democracy, as much because of his policy proposals, from special scrutiny of immigrants from Muslim-majority countries to restrictions on voting, as his leadership style. And on those issues, there is little, if any, daylight between Trump and Sessions. Sessions has long been the most outspoken opponent of immigration, both legal and unauthorized, in the United States Senate. He has shown ambivalence about preserving voting access, and he's, in many ways, the most conservative member of the Senate on criminal justice issues, from believing the federal government should crack down on state marijuana legislation to warning that the drop in federal prison population was causing a spike in crime. There was also an added wrinkle in Sessions' history that made it perhaps a little more palatable to take a stand against a longtime senator. He's been rejected by the Senate Judiciary Committee before. In 1986, Sessions, then an assistant U.S. attorney, was nominated to the federal branch by Ronald Reagan. But after a contentious confirmation hearing scrutinized both Sessions' civil rights record in court and his personal behavior towards black colleagues, the Republican-led committee did something that violated the norms of the time. It voted against his confirmation. Sessions was the second nominee to be denied a judgeship in 50 years. Sessions weathered the setback. It hasn't stopped him from serving for decades on the very committee that rejected him, but it presented an awkward parallel when he was nominated for Attorney General. Was Jeff Sessions too racist for the GOP of Ronald Reagan, but not the GOP of Donald Trump? For a while, it wasn't clear that Senate Democrats were interested in taking a stand against a long-time colleague. Instead, outside advocacy groups led the way. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund released a thorough dossier on Sessions' record. Immigration advocacy groups paid more attention to him than they did the DHS nominee, General John Kelly. The American Civil Liberties Union, which doesn't usually take a stand on executive branch appointments, is sending its legal director to testify against Sessions in committee. Many Democrats are taking their lead. At least one senator, Sherrod Brown, who's not on the Judiciary Committee, has already said he'll vote against Sessions once his nomination comes to the full Senate floor. Senator Pat Leahy, the former chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, published a biting op-ed in the Boston Globe over the weekend, labeling his colleague an extremist. And on Monday night, after a fight between Republicans and Democrats on the Judiciary Committee about whether and when a group of black members of Congress should be allowed to testify to voice their concerns, a lineup was announced that included Booker. It's probable that for many Democrats, this is a matter of politics as much as principle. Booker, for example, is generally expected to have presidential ambitions, but Leahy, not to mention John Lewis, isn't thinking about his own career at this point. To the extent that Democrats are motivated by politics, it's because they think this is a fight the Democratic Party needs to pick right now. So I don't know if I need to go down all of this. I'm just not sure. It just goes on and on and on. But the big thing was immigration, and they said that he was racist. Now, I think, as far as I'm concerned, he's been cleared of that. But of course, the way the media spins it, well, So that's why his confirmation was challenged heavily, because basically, because of his stand, it so closely mirrored Trump's stand. But again, they focused very heavily on racism, and that was because of his past under Ronald Reagan. So this Q's next question is, why was Ronald Reagan's confirmation smooth and easy? I don't know. Because I really don't know. Because to me, it wasn't. From what I understand, it was not smooth and easy. So I don't understand really what Q is saying here. I don't know what he's getting at. Let me see here. What did I put? Hang on. Okay. Mr. Sessions was nominated to the Supreme Court by President Ronald Reagan in 1986. However, his appointment was opposed by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and other civil rights organizations. Lawyers with whom he had worked testified that Mr. Sessions had made racially offensive remarks and his attitude towards civil rights cases was criticized. His nomination was subsequently rejected. So that is a fact of what happened back then. Now, what was the vote count for? I would assume this is Ronald Reagan. I don't know who else it could be. I don't know. I can't find that information anywhere. And, I'm kind of bumbling through this one post because I've tried my best to get the information that I could get, but I'm really not sure about this in here. Really not sure. Why did Sessions recuse himself? Well, and he did recuse himself in March, and I'm not sure. Let me just say this. I'm not sure whether they're talking about recusing himself during the time of Ronald Reagan, because he withdrew his own nomination, or recusing himself from the FBI investigation into the Russia interference thing. So anyway, in March 2017, Mr. Sessions recused himself from the FBI investigation into Russia interference in the presidential election. It had emerged that Mr. Sessions had contact with the Russian ambassador, which he'd failed to disclose in his confirmation hearing. So that's why he recused himself in 2017. And I would assume that that is what Q is talking about. Why is this relevant? I have no idea. So if any of you can help me out on this, because I am quite certain that some of you know more than I do about this. So yeah, that's why we all need each other, because again, I certainly don't have all the answers. What group has vocally supported RM recently? I would imagine that stands for Robert Mueller. And the people that have vocally supported Robert Mueller are the Democrats. That, I am pretty confident, is the correct answer for that. On May 17th, 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed Mueller to serve as special counsel for the United States Department of Justice. In this capacity, Mueller oversees the investigation into any links and or coordination between Russia government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump and any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. And that's what he's doing right now. He's the special counsel for the Department of Justice, and that's what he's overseeing, is this whole Russia thing. So the Democrats have vocally supported him, of course, because he's looking into the whole Russia thing, thinking that they're going to get Trump on that, which they're not. So how do you capture a very dangerous animal? Again, I'd say, well, you set a trap, come at him from behind, go in the back door, I don't know. Who is the best to conduct the attack? Someone they least suspect. That's what I would say. What is the one force necessary to retain control? Definitely military. I know that's the right answer. Why does the U.S. military play such a vital role in this global game of risk? Well, because they're needed to gain control. To me, that's pretty straightforward. In fact, it's so straightforward, I'm not sure why he asked it. What is money without power? Well, it's pretty darn useless, if you ask me. I mean, at the level that Q is talking about, I mean, certainly, you and I don't have power, and money is useful to us, because I'm sure we like to eat and have a roof over our head and drive a car, things like that. And clothes, they're important. Anyway, why did the President of the United States depart Manila 30 minutes ahead of schedule? Interesting. I didn't know that. So I looked into it. I did indeed. Now, let me see here. Okay. U.S. President Donald Trump has, at the last minute, skipped the plenary session of the 18-nation East Asia Summit with events running behind schedule. Trump instead headed to Air Force One to leave the Philippines. The plane lifted off from Ninoy Aquino International Airport on Tuesday afternoon, more than 30 minutes earlier than had been planned. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was called on to stand in for Trump at the summit. White House officials explained that Trump said what he intended to say at the summit during an earlier lunch for leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So he did leave 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Why? Well, his reason was because he'd already said what he needed to say. I don't believe that that's why, or else he wouldn't even be asking that question. So I'm going to surmise that it was perhaps there was a threat. Perhaps he didn't want his schedule, others to know his schedule to the exact moment. Maybe he feared an ambush. I don't know. But he did indeed leave 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Then Q asks, why is Air Force One landing in Hawaii? Well, my answer would have been to refuel. That's what I would think. However, down here he says, does Air Force One have an in-air fueling ability? Well, yes, apparently it does. So he didn't need to stop in Hawaii in reality, not to refuel anyway. So let's go to here. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow tonight because my mind is starting to shut down. Okay, White House cuts aerial refueling from new Air Force One. The Trump administration nixed in-air refueling for the presidential transport, but Congress has questioned the decision. Interesting. General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the highest-ranking military officer in the nation, yesterday told the Senate Armed Services Committee that the White House decided to remove aerial refueling capabilities from the new Air Force One requirements rather than the Air Force. Dunford was testifying to the committee during a hearing on the reappointment to the chairmanship of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as reported by Military.com. Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas asked Dunford what he made of the decision to cut mid-air refueling capabilities from the new Boeing 747s that are to serve as the primary presidential transports in the future. Strangely to me, the Air Force has just announced that the next version of Air Force One will not have in-flight refueling capability, Cotton said. What do you make of that? Dunford responded, Senator, I think that was a decision that was not made by the Air Force, but made by the White House. And I think it had to do with fiscal constraints on the program. It will certainly be a limiting factor and we'll have to plan accordingly. I think we might need to revisit that decision here on Capitol Hill, Cotton replied. The statements can be seen in the video below at the 140 mark. Now, I didn't do this previously, but I am going to see if we can, I can't because I don't, sorry. I just realized I don't have my capability for you to be able to hear this turned on because it causes an echo, so I won't be able to do that. I apologize. The Trump administration has been adamant about driving the development costs of the new Air Force One jets down ever since Trump tweeted that the program was out of control and threatened to cancel order on December 6, 2016. Many cost-saving measures have been taken since, including the discount purchase of 2 Boeing 747s by the Air Force to serve as Air Force One that were originally purchased by a Russian airline. Transaero through the airline is now defunct and the planes were never delivered. As part of the effort to cut costs by $1 billion, aerial refueling was cut from the program as well, as reported by Defense One earlier this month. Proponents of the cut argue that aerial refueling is not necessary considering no president has ever used the capability, not even George W. Bush, who loitered over the Gulf of Mexico in Air Force One for 8 hours after the 9/11 attacks. Opponents of removing mid-air refueling say that the ability to take on fuel and fly for long periods of time, even days, is vital to ensure the government can continue operating in a crisis, including nuclear war. Senator Cotton made it clear that there is some resistance in Congress to axing Air Force One aerial refueling capabilities, considering the new presidential transports will not be completed for years. It is not yet clear whether they will be able to take on fuel during flight or not. So, it's interesting because Trump is saying that these new jets didn't need, and this was saving them $1 billion. They didn't need that capability of mid-air refueling because no president ever in history has ever used that capability. So why have it? So I'm not sure here because, Q is saying, why is Air Force One landing in Hawaii? Well, I would say to refuel. That's what I would say. But I don't know, because if it had the ability to refuel midair, then which it does, the current Air Force One does, then why would they need to refuel? And does Air Force One have? Yes, it does. So I'm not sure here. And why are they cutting it out? Is it to save money? I don't know. Is it for another reason? I don't know. If it's saving $1 billion, that's a huge saving to the government, so I can see that. There may be another reason, but I cannot think of one. But then I'm not a pilot, and I have no idea. So Q says nothing is as it appears. So apparently, I don't know. I don't know about this right in here. If somebody else has ideas, please let us know. What was the DC vote breakdown between Trump and Clinton? Trump had 55.7% of the vote. What is the nickname for DC? Now this is interesting. I'm not exactly sure which nickname Q is referring to here, but I will show you this. These are the nicknames for Washington, D.C. The American Rome, a capital city, the capital of the world, the capital of the free world, the district, Chocolate City. I have no idea about that. City of magnificent distances. That was reported in the 1880s. I'm pretty sure that's not the one. City of Magnificent Intentions, first coined by Charles Dickens. I'm pretty sure that's not the one either. The Federal City. Hollywood for ugly people. I like that. I like it. I'm voting for that. Murder Capital of America. Now, I've heard that. I've always heard that. Nation's Capital. So I don't know. I would say the contenders might be the American Rome, capital of the world, capital of the free world, murder capital of America, nation's capital. I don't know. I don't know which nickname Q is drawing attention to. I really don't. But if you know, please let us know. Why would sealed indictments be outside of DC jurisdiction? And in the last video, of course, I did leave the link to all those indictments that are coming down the pipe. And why would sealed indictments be outside of DC jurisdiction? Because one indictment can cover multiple courts and multiple accused. What purpose would this serve? I don't know. What are judicial appointments, or why are judicial appointments being rapidly completed? Because there's work to be done. I can't think of any other reason. There's work to be done, and the president needs to get this done. Who can you trust? Don't know. Have faith, patriots. Q. So I apologize because I haven't given you a lot of information here because I don't know some of the answers to these questions. And I can only give you what I have, and I can only kind of lead you in the right direction, but I don't know. And I'm hoping that somebody that hears this will have more information and can kind of fill in the blanks where I've been unable to. Now, I'm going to go on to the next one, which is Tuesday, the 14th of November, 2017. And Q says something interesting here. This is very interesting to me. He says, "Isn't that curious? What's below?" Q. Now, that would be, I would have no idea what he was talking about, except that Trump tweeted this. Okay, so this was tweeted at the same day. They weren't tweeted at the same time, but then you have to take into consideration that I don't know how Twitter works this way. I don't know if when you tweet on Twitter that it takes into consideration where you're tweeting from and assigns the tweet that time zone. I don't know. Or if wherever you sign up for Twitter, that is your assigned time zone, and I don't know how that works. If anyone does know how that works, please let me know. I'm sure there are many people that understand that. I don't, because I'm just not a Twitter user. I'm on Twitter only so that I can look at other people's tweets. So this was tweeted at, it could be the same time. It could be like within minutes apart. I just don't know, because this one was this one over here. That was 1:07 in the afternoon. Okay, that's when that was posted to 4Chan, the message board. But again, I don't know how the time is, calculated there. Does it go by the time zone that you are posting it from? I would assume so. So I don't know. But anyway, it is the same day. And, Trump takes a picture out of Air Force One, and I don't think that, that's it. He was just, and I haven't actually gone to this tweet. I really should have, but that's really not the point of this anyway. The point is that he posted this on his Twitter, and on the exact same day, not that far apart, Q posts this. "Isn't that curious? What's below?" Q. Now, that's not a coincidence, and this has happened more times than this, where there's been a picture or there's been some sort of confirmation between Donald Trump's Twitter account and the posting on 4chan. So it's pretty obvious that if this isn't Trump, that it's someone very close to him and someone that is riding on Air Force One. So I Otherwise, they would have no access to that information, and that's obvious. So all these people that are saying that this is a LARP, which is what does LARP stand for? Live action role playing. I think that's what LARP stands for. And if you've been around and been on any message boards at all, you know that there are people that do that. They'll pretend to have, secret information or top level information, or they'll say, I got it from my uncle. My uncle is so-and-so in the government, and they said this is going to happen. And they role play it out. But this is not that. And honestly, anyone that has looked into this more than an hour should know that this is not, someone young doing role playing. It's not. It's beyond that. It's well beyond that. So just to clear that up. And I am going to pause it there. Well, maybe not. No, I'm going to go on. Gosh darn it, I feel like going on. So if you'll listen, I'll go on. All right, let's go on to this one. This was Tuesday, the 14th of November, 2017. And Q says, for the coming days ahead, ask yourself an honest question. Why would a billionaire who has it all, fame, fortune, a warm and loving family, friends, etc., want to endanger himself and his family by becoming the President of the United States? That is indeed a good question, because he does not need money, he doesn't need fame, he doesn't need exposure. He doesn't need more friends. He doesn't, he's got a loving family, he's got lots of friends. There's nothing that he could gain by being president, nothing at all. Why would he want to target himself and those he cares about? That's a good question. Why would he? He's got a wife that he loves, he's got kids, he's got grandkids. Why would he put them at risk? I don't know. Does he need money? No, it would appear not. Does he need fame? No, he's got that. He had that long before he was president. In fact, being president has done more harm to his name than not. So I don't know. What does he get out of this? Really, what does he get out of this? I can't think of anything, honestly. Can you? Can you think of anything that he's gaining by doing this? I really can't. And I'm not saying that because I'm pro-Trump, because I'm really not. I'm pro-truth. That's what I am. I'm pro-truth. And, I'm not against Trump. I'm just very cautious, and I study things out. I'm pro-truth. But really, I cannot see how this man is gaining anything by being in the office that he's in right now. In fact, I think it's the complete opposite. So, does he want to make the U.S. or world a better place for his family and for those good and decent people who have long been taken advantage of? Well, to tell you the truth, by looking at everything that's been happening and by looking at the intelligence that's come out in these posts, it would seem so. And, unless there's some nefarious reasons that we're not aware of, it would seem that's the reason. And then he says this, and then Q says, perhaps he could not stomach the thought of mass murders occurring to satisfy Moloch. Now, I think any of you that have been around a while know who Moloch is. Moloch is the owl god, or he's not really the owl god, but he's often symbolized by an owl. And he's known by other names as well. Perhaps you've heard of Baal or Baal worship. That's also Moloch. And it's the biblical name of the Canaanite god. And it was associated with child sacrifice, murder, and basically the Phoenicians would build this statue, and the arms were outward, and they would be, as if you were holding like a bundle of wood. That's how the hands would be shaped, except there would be nothing there. And what they would do is they'd heat the interior of this statue. Was hollow, and they would heat it. They would super heat it, and then they would place infants in the arms of this, and they'd burn. It would burn them to death, and they would be consumed. So that is what they would do. And of course, they have a big statue of Moloch at the Bohemian Grove. And Moloch really has long been associated with the elite. That's why all of the owls, and owls have really come into fashion. I cannot stand owls for that reason, because I know what they symbolize. And I'm sure it's quite innocent a lot of times, but I just don't like the owl symbology, because I understand what it means and what it stands for. So that's that. Then Q goes on. He says, perhaps he could not stomach the thought of children being kidnapped, drugged, and raped, while leaders, law enforcement of the world turn a blind eye. And he's not asking a question there, he's making a statement. Perhaps he was tired of seeing how certain races / countries were being constantly abused and kept in need / poor / and suffering, all for a specific purpose. And of course we know that goes on, and Q is saying that maybe that's why POTUS ran for power. Perhaps he could not, in good conscience, see the world burn. Now, these little stars here I put there because I have a little bit of an issue with that, and I don't know whether to go into it or not, but okay, I will. Okay, you talked me right into it. I'm sorry, but I don't care how powerful POTUS is, or Trump is, in this case Trump. They're not going to prevent the world from burning. Okay? They're not. He's not the savior of the world. He can affect the world for good, absolutely. He can save a lot of people in terms of, bringing the people to justice that are kidnapping, drugging, raping, the pedophiles, so forth. He can affect a whole lot of good in this world. But can he keep the world from burning? No. Sorry. Because someday the world will burn, and that's what the Word of God says. I know that everyone that's listening to me is not necessarily of the Christian faith, and that's fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine. Absolutely. I'm just stating my opinion, and my opinion is based on the Word of God, and I believe that the Bible is the Word of God. So I'm just interjecting that there, and you can come to your own conclusion here and think what you want, or perhaps he's not even saying that in a literal sense. I don't know, but I just felt that I needed to interject that there. So let's go on. Why, hours after the election, did 7 people travel to a disclosed location to hold a very private and highly secured, guarded meeting? I don't know. I really wasn't aware that happened. I don't have information about that. If any of you do, please let us know. Why didn't Hillary Rodham Clinton give a concession speech? Well, she did eventually, but she didn't right away. And I remember thinking, wow, that's unheard of. Now, was it because she was so upset? that she didn't want to appear in public? Had she been crying? Had she been upset? Had she been, did this? I think that this came as a complete shock to her. So I think she was probably, in, what do you call that? Shock, like literal shock, not, literal shock. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody in literal shock, like if after a car accident or whatever. It's not very pleasant. And so perhaps she was. Perhaps she couldn't come out and give a concession speech. Or perhaps she was expecting that someone at the last minute would save her. There would be a recount or whatever. I just think that she was so sure she had the presidency in the bag that this had to have come as a complete and utter shock. And then there's the horror of realizing everything that goes along with that. That, oh my gosh, the next person in office in this situation, Trump, is going to know about everything we did. He's going to find out. I don't know. I don't know why she didn't give a concession speech right away. But that would be my understanding. I know if I was in her shoes, and thank goodness I'm not, I would be shocked. If someone had promised me the presidency and said it's in the bag, we're going to ensure that you get in, I'd be gobsmacked. I love that word, gobsmacked. I heard that from an Australian friend. Okay. When was the last time a presidential candidate didn't personally give a concession speech? I don't know. Never. Never. In the history of the United States that I'm aware of. What happens if the border remained open and the mainstream media continued to brainwash? Well, I think we all know what would have happened, right? I think that, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. At what point do patriots and hardworking men and women become the minority? Well, I think we're just about there. And it would appear that this big ship is turning around now, but I think we're just about there. What about voting machines? Who owns the voting machines? Well, we've been through this before in previous posts, and I don't know if we need to revisit it, but it has been suggested that Soros has ownership in some of these voting machines, and so there you go. What about voter ID laws? Well, we need to have voter ID laws, definitely. And again, this is something that we've visited in previous posts. We know that you are required to have ID to drive, to drink, to do all sorts of things you have to have ID for, but it's okay not to have ID to vote. And that is ridiculous, absolutely asinine. Photo ID, when is it necessary and must be presented? Make a list. Laugh. Well, again, we did this in another video where we made a list of, and we talked about some different things that you need photo ID for, and just about everything, and yet not for voting. Absolutely ludicrous. And then he says, reconcile. Would the chances of defeating evil grow less and less with each passing year? Now, I think the answer is yes. If nothing had changed, the chances of defeating evil and defeating what was going on in our government would grow less and less. I mean, to the point where it would be impossible for anyone to even think about it. Even at the place that we're at now, I would have thought it impossible. And I'm sure you probably did as well. I would have thought it's impossible to turn this Titanic around. It's just impossible. And so, yes, I would say absolutely. The chances of defeating evil, every year that went by, it was going to get worse and worse and worse, because there would be just so much more to have to address. There'd be probably more sleeper cells in the U.S., more of everything. So would the chance of defeat, okay, sorry, I told you my brain's shutting down. What does red line mean? Well, I think to me a red line is it's a line in the sand that says, okay, this far and no more. That's what I would say that it means. Why, again, were the arrests made in Saudi Arabia so very important? Well, this has been visited and revisited, and I don't think it's necessary that I go through this again about the purge in Saudi Arabia. It was important, obviously, because of the ties to those people that were arrested in Saudi Arabia to members of our own government. Follow the money, and indeed, that's what we've been doing. When does a bird sing? Well, when does a bird sing? Well, to tell you the truth, what that makes me think of is, you put somebody, you arrest somebody and you say, okay, you tell me about these people over here and we'll go light on your sentence. And to me, that's what's being referred here, a bird singing. Because if you're in trouble yourself, you've been caught doing something, and somebody comes to you and says, look, you know what you did's really bad and you're going to go away for a very long time. However, if you help us to get this person and this person and this person or this group, we're going to go light on your sentence. Well, would you so-called sing? I think I would. Maybe, but I really hope that I would never be in a position where I would do something that would necessitate me being imprisoned. And then he ends that with Q. So there we have it for that. And I am going to end now because I have been going on for quite some time and I don't want these to get too long. So I am going to be uploading a video or two tomorrow. I'm off for a week, so I want to get caught up with these posts. And I just wish you all a good night, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and keep on being your wonderful selves.